Hey, welcome YouTube. I do want to do a quick video on the JoJan Multi Fletcher. If you're going to buy one of these, you have one, you don't have directions, you're frustrated with it, or you just want to know how it works. Hopefully this helps. No guarantees, but I've had one of these for a couple years now. I like it. I got another Bitsenberg coming, so we'll do maybe like an unboxing and how to use that. JoJan Multi Fletcher. Two components. You got the base. Three components. You got the base. You've got clamps, 6 clamps. This is a multi Fletcher. It does 6 arrows at the same time. And you've got Nock receivers. Okay, these Nock receivers can go 3 fletch. Or 4 fletch. It's set for 3 fletch right now. You pop these out, spin them around, put them in the other way. That's 4 fletch. Okay. 3 fletch is 90 degrees or 120 degrees. I'm sorry. 4 fletch would be 90 degrees. Okay. Nock receivers have a little indent here for your starting position, cock feather up. That's mainly important for guys who still fletch aluminum arrows and they have glue-on nocks and they can't spin them in their arrows like you can with the carbon nocks. Carbon nocks you can spin around, so it's not critical that that's in that starting position. But like the Easton arrows, their nocks aren't easily spun or taken out for that matter. The gold tip nocks spin real easy and pop out easy. So I still always start with these notches up, cock feather. And they spin, and you'll hear it click for each position. Okay. Adjustments. On the top, you have adjustments. There is some markings here, left, straight, right. There are 2 wing nuts here to adjust left and right. There are 2 wing nuts on the bottom, and you can adjust the nock end left and right. Okay, those are the only really 2 adjustments. These are right wing clamps. That's all I use. Even if I do blazer vanes, people still like that helical. Important thing to remember is you can't get caught up in your degree of offset and your helical and all that stuff. It's all built into this clamp. The magic's all in the clamp, okay? It's all there. And really all you can do on this jig, and all you really want to do, it makes it real simple, is adjust top and bottom to get that fletch or feather to sit nice and square on that arrow, okay? We're going to pop an arrow in here, and we're going to do what you call a dry run. And we're going to take a feather, and we're going to put it in our clamp. I have these all marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's nice to use the same clamp for the same arrow on here, just in case there's any, variance in these clamps. Okay, we'll take our 3rd clamp right here. All right, clamps are spring loaded. Put your arrow in your clamp, or your feather. I'm sorry. Get it down, seated down to that quill. And there's a little notch right here. I find that it's perfect for what I use. It's plenty of finger clearance for feathers, for split fingers, 3 under, what have you. There's no markings on here, so if you want to take a permanent marker, if you want to mark it higher up, that way your vanes and or feathers are sitting above your nock in the same position for every feather. Okay, so we've got it in here where we want, no glue. Put it in the clamp. There's this little straight piece on the bottom of your clamp that fits into this groove, this notch. And this rounded part sits up in here. Okay. This is what I do. Once this is set up for a right wing, you do have to tweak it for different diameter arrows. Okay. These are thinner arrows. I had fatter in there, bigger diameter arrows in there before. What you're looking for is when you have that feather in there, you're looking for any daylight or valleys in there. If you see any, you'd loosen up the top and you'd slide that bar left or right, and I'll do it. You can see the slides left and right. You can see the arrow shaft moving left or right, okay? Same thing with the bottom. And you're just trying to get it set on there to where you don't see any daylight and that quill's sitting in there nice and flush and flat. And if you see anything obvious, that's the time to adjust this. What I like to do is I like to glue a feather. You can use an old feather. You can use a shaft, an old shaft, as long as it's the same diameter. And I like to go ahead and glue up one feather onto one shaft and make sure it's the way I like it. If I don't like it, I'll tweak it. I won't put it in that clamp for the full 10 to 20 minutes that I usually use. That's the time, like 10 to 20 minutes with the Fletching Platinum, and I like this glue for a couple reasons. For feathers especially, because feathers are feathers. There's imperfection, there's valleys, there's low spots. This is not a fast dry glue. It seems to be a little thicker. It seems to fill in those voids. And even if you have a feather that's not so perfect, it seems to do really well on those, okay? All right, so we've got our gross adjustment set. It looks pretty good. It's sitting on there. It looks like it's flush. Okay, top and bottom. I'll pop it back out. All right, here's the big tip. I take it, that quill, and I run my fingernail under it, okay? And I pop it out of that clamp about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch, okay? On the Bitzenberger jigs, it says to do that in the directions. On the JoJan, it does not, okay? So I pop it out. You can see it, it's popped out right there, popped out a little bit right there. All right, and make sure, you might have moved a little bit, so make sure you're good down there at the bottom. Okay, got it on there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put our glue on, all right? And hopefully this glue wants to flow good. Sometimes it's not all that great. And we want to put a nice thin bead of glue. We want to cover that whole quill. All right, and we're just going to watch it nice and slow, put it on there, run it down. All right, so I got a bead of glue on there. I want to make sure I got some at the top. You can use your fingers or a toothpick or whatever. And I usually look down in the daylight or light and make sure it's going to glisten, you know, like water. It's wet. It's on there good. Okay. All right. So I like to push down on the arrow because these knocks are different arrow to arrow, and we want to make sure it's sitting down in these knock receivers. Okay. So I put a little downward pressure on the arrow. I put that in this notch. I make sure it's all the way down into the notch, and I don't go in like this. I don't go in like that. I go nice and square down, and I just nicely, gently, and I got it sitting on that arrow. Okay. Now, taking that quill and pushing it away from the seat, you know, it's not fully seated into that clamp. What that does, if there's any daylight and, you know, peaks or valleys in that quill, if it's not perfect, it's going to meet that shaft, okay? First, it's on that shaft right now. And then we're going to give it a little downward pressure. Not a lot, just nice pressure. You don't need to hold it. You just want to make sure it's seated down there good. We got a little pressure going down right here. And we want to let it up. All right. I try to not, if I don't have to remove any glue. I know a lot of guys do. To me, I just find it troublesome because I take a Q-tip and run it down there, and I find that sucks the glue out from that quill, or I get glue on the clamp. So, you know, I get a couple beads of glue. I don't really worry about it. You know, that glue dries crystal clear for the most part. You're not going to notice it. If you get a really big daub of glue on there, you know, go ahead and wipe it off. But for the most part, I try not to mess with any of that excess glue. Okay, it's sitting on there. Let's see, what else can we talk about this clamp? I like it. It does 6 arrows at a time. The beauty is you set one, you got all 6 set. What I do is, once I think I got it good, even though I've put this one feather on there, and I got all 6, and I do all 6, and say I have one that doesn't look good, after that first feather, I can still tweak it. Sometimes I tweak it between the first and second feather, and I tweak it again between the second and third feather. We're trying to get perfection, but it's not always perfect, and they're just marginal. I don't redo it. I keep going. You're gonna get better as you do it. Clamps, it's a good idea. If your fletching, your feathers aren't sitting in there, they keep wanting to pop out, it's probably because you got some glue buildup in here. You want to scrape these off, between your feathers and clean them off. You can take the back side of a knife and scrape it down there. That helps. Like I say, everything's built into this clamp. All you're doing with the adjustments is left and right, top and bottom. The directions, don't get too caught up into that. You just want that quill to be sitting on that arrow. Here's an example. Here's the bottom. It's centered in that arrow. You go up or bottom. Let's look here. Centered on that arrow. It's not too far left, not too far right. I wouldn't say that's perfect, but that's good. So is that. It wraps around the arrow, but you want your starting point to be in the center of the arrow, and you want your end point, meaning the opposite end of that feather, to be in the center of that arrow. Okay, that's what you're trying to get. I always do one feather like this first because I want to make sure that everything's good before once that's set, I'm good to go. Okay, so we're going to take this clamp off, nice and easy. Looks good. I'm going to pop it out. We're going to inspect it. Looks really good at the top. Looks really good at the bottom. Centered. If we did need to move it a little bit, I'd put it back in and get a reference point. Okay, so the top, I want to move it over that way a little bit. It's a little too far this way. I loosen these up, I tweak it. Same at the bottom. If I need to move it, I tweak it a little bit. From there, you can do two things. You can go ahead and glue another feather, test run, or if you're confident, hey, you moved it a little bit, or if you're good from that first one, you're good to go. Prep your arrows, put them in there, make sure your indexes are all perfect, or in the right position, and you're good to go. These are great fletching tools if you get them set up right, and they're very simple. Just don't get caught up in those directions, okay? The big thing is that feather has to be centered on that arrow and flat. And once you do that, it's a no-brainer and it's real easy. Hopefully this has helped. Like I said, we'll do one on the bits when I get that in. And okay, thank you very much. Not like, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want to do, comment. Thank you.